Be seated, thank you. Mr. Kaiser, your continued direct, please.
Thank you, Your Honor. Ms. Beckstrom, it was winter, it was snowing. What were you wearing when you got to the house?
I was wearing our standard uniform, which is similar to the pants that I have on today, blue. I had a blue t-shirt along with a blue sweatshirt that has our department logo on the front and in big white letters on the back, EMS.
Is there any further physical description you can think of that you can give us of the person who was laying on top of the patient?
Yes. So it was a larger man that did not have a shirt on, bald head, and wearing pajama pants.
At the point at which that person was laying on the patient, what, if any, assessment were you able to make of the patient's condition?
I was not able to assess the patient.
Other than laying on the patient, was the man doing anything else to him?
No.
So no CPR, no chest compressions, right? All right. So if you recall, I forget because we took a break. What was the call again?
Gunshot wound to the head.
Did you see the patient's head with that person laying there?
No, I could not.
What did you do?
I walked around the patient to his right side and knelt down and tapped the man on top of him and told him I needed him to move so I could see the patient's head.
Where did you tap the person who was laying on top of the patient?
On his shoulder back area.
Were you at his head when you did that or at his side?
At his head, side kind of.
How did that person react to your physical request?
He did not initially respond, so I tapped again and told him I needed him to move and kind of pushed him to move him, and he did then slowly get up and turn and look at me.
When he looked at you, what did you see?
No expression, no reaction.
Did you see any tears?
No, I did not.
Now, when you went up to talk to him, did you have gloves on at that point?
Yes, I did.
When did you put the gloves on?
I put those gloves on as we pull into the driveway and get ready to get out of the truck.
So once this person got up off of your patient, how quickly did they do that?
It was quite slow.
Where did that person go?
I'm not sure where he went from then. I was focused on the patient at that point.
Once he was moved, what's the first thing you noticed about the patient?
I noticed a significant, obvious wound to his head.
Can you describe it for us?
Yes, it was positioned forehead, crown area, just slight right. There was significant bone and brain matter around the wound.
What was your first reaction to that serious of a wound?
That was a very significant injury.
While you were making that observation, what, if any, life signs did you see from the patient?
I looked at the patient's arms, legs, his torso area to see any movement, which I did not. I did a sternal rub, which is taking your knuckles and rubbing the sternum to try to elicit a response because of the pain, which there was no response. And I checked for a pulse on the carotid artery on the left side of his neck, as I did not want to move the head, and I did not feel a pulse.
Based on those observations, how, if in any way, did that confirm your initial observation that this was a very serious wound?
At that point, the patient was determined to be unresponsive and potentially deceased.
Where did you see blood coming out of?
The top of the head, the wound. I saw blood that streamed down the left side left side of the face, and dark red blood pooled in his left ear.
Were you able to tell from your observations whether the blood pooled in the left ear was coming from the outside wounds or from the inside?
It appeared to be coming from the outside wounds based on the stream of blood down the face.
Now, while you were doing what you just described, all those things, what was Bridget doing?
Bridget came in the house after me and was discussing the situation with Sergeant Sather, kind of assessing whether he wanted us to do any further assessment of the patient to determine if he was deceased.
What do we now, the person we now know as Summer, what was she doing while you were doing all these things, talking to Bridget, talking to Sergeant Sather?
Summer, I believe, was in the living room, and she was very hysterical and crying and screaming.
What was she telling you to do?
Save her brother, help her brother.
What determination did you make about what, if any, other procedures to perform?
After discussing with Sergeant Sather, we determined that he wanted us to go ahead and do a cardiac assessment using our monitor to see if there was any heart activity and to confirm death.
How did you do that?
We have our monitor that we have, and we placed 3 small electrode stickers on his chest and attach that to cables that go to our monitor, and then we look for on the monitor electrical activity of the heart. And when we see that, if we see electrical activity, that means we may be able to shock the heart and get it beating again.
And are you able to read on that equipment right there where you are?
Yes.
Show me what's been marked as Exhibit 39 for identification. Could you tell us if you recognize what that's a photograph of, please?
Yes, that's a photograph of the patient with our monitor, with the electrodes and the leads attached to the patient after we had run the test looking for heart activity.
So does that truly and accurately show how the patient looked that day in the town of Richmond when you hooked up to see if you could find any heart activity?
Yes.
Move Exhibit 39 into evidence.
Received.
Asked to publish.
Granted.
So what's the box on the patient's left side?
That would be our monitor.
And what are the... So it looks like there's 2 electrodes on his left side, is that correct?
Yes, so there's one that's placed near the shoulder, one on the lower left side abdomen, and then there's one on the right shoulder area.
So you and Bridget did all that.
I placed the electrodes on the patient.
What results did you get?
We got no electrical activity in the heart. Essentially, the heart was at a standstill.
What was the process then that day to have the patient declared deceased?
So once we ran the cardiac assessment and got the results that we did, we determined the patient was most likely had a non-survivable injury, head injury. And so our protocol states we need to contact medical control, which is a physician at Westfields Hospital. We called them, and Bridget called Dr. Milbrand, I believe was the physician on call that night, discussed the situation, the type of injury, our patient assessment, the results of the cardiac assessment, and to collectively agreed that the patient had a non-survivable injury and was deceased.
What time was he declared deceased?
4:32 a.m.
Other than attaching the what are the white things called?
Electrodes.
Other than attaching the electrodes to the patient's body, did you in any way change or move his position from the time you got there?
No, I did not.
Did you in any way change or move any of the furniture in the house or anything like that?
No, I did not.
Did you have an opportunity to observe the person we now know as Summer while you were there?
Yes.
What, if any, blood did you notice on her?
She had a fair amount of blood on her arms, both arms, the knees of her pants. Her hands were covered in blood, and she had blood in her hair.
The person who had been laying on your patient, you had never seen him before that morning. In other words, the first time you saw him, he was on the patient. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Once he got up from the patient, where, if anywhere, did you see blood on him?
I did not observe any blood on him.
Now, once you were done with having him be declared deceased, where, if anywhere, did you go?
We packed up our equipment and we went out to our ambulance to wait for a few minutes.
So from the time you were first, the person who had been laying on your patient and the person we now know as Summer were together until you left, how, if in any way, did you see the person we know as Summer acting towards the person who had been laying on the patient?
She was yelling and very hysterical towards him, making comments towards him,
Without saying what she said.
yeah, asking questions of him.
And it was loud.
It was, yes, it was loud.
How, if in any way, did you see that person react to Summer?
There was no reaction to Summer.
Now, when you went out to the ambulance, what were you intending to do?
We were planning to just wait for a few minutes to see if law enforcement needed us any longer, and then we were going to leave the scene. Our work was done.
I forgot to ask earlier, and I apologize, my fault. So if you don't mind backtracking with me for a minute. Speaking of law enforcement, when you got there, who, if anyone, came into the house with you?
When I got there,
And Summer was at the door? Yes. Was it just you and then Bridget following you, or was there any law enforcement there?
Sergeant Sather was inside in the foyer area when I walked in.
By the time you had been there a while, who, if any other law enforcement, if you know, came to the house?
There were other St. Croix County Sheriff officers that were there. I don't know how many or who they were.
What was it you thought law enforcement might need from you?
Potentially to help Summer because of her emotional state.
Was it still pretty chaotic in there?
It was, yes.
So after a while, did anyone ask you to stay?
We had left the scene, cleared after about 5 minutes in the ambulance, and we got just around the corner from the house, maybe half a block, and dispatch notified us that we needed to return to the scene.
Did you do that?
We did.
After you got back there, where did you go?
Inside the
Who did you talk to?
Summer, I think, was the only one that I spoke directly with.
And what did you ask her to do?
To find shoes.
Was that sort of a struggle?
A little bit, yes.
Where
yes.
were they?
There were many shoes in the foyer area, and so I believe we gave her a pair of shoes that were not hers, but they did the trick.
Okay, so let me just move us back so we can all know where we're talking about. We saw in Exhibit 1 or Exhibit 2 that there's a front door, right?
Yes,
So when we're talking about the foyer, where is that in relation to the front door?
right through the front door.
All right. So what did you remember there being on the floor of that area just inside the front door?
I don't recall what was on the floor besides shoes.
That's what I'm talking
Yeah.
about. Okay. So there were multiple pairs of shoes.
Yes, yes.
Eventually, once you had some shoes on her, where, if anywhere, did you and Summer go?
We went to the ambulance.
Did you stay there with her?
Yes.
Who else, if anyone, came to kind of care with her?
My partner Bridget was with me. I think the sheriff chaplain
Do you
came.
know that person's name?
I do not recall his name.
And at various points, did officers come in and try to talk to Summer in the ambulance?
Yes,
Did you stay for those conversations?
yes.
How was she during those conversations?
Very upset. She continued to be very emotional and very upset, distraught.
If you can, do you see the person here in court today who was laying on top of your patient?
We'll
Yeah.
stipulate she's referring to my client. Kayle
Thank you.
Fleischauer.
Identification stipulated.
No further questions, Your Honor, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Gray?
There's Beckstrom, is it Beckstrom or Beckstrom?
Beckstrom.
Beckstrom. Did you make out a medical report on this showing all of the injuries?
My partner, Bridget, wrote our report for that.
Okay. Anything in that report about an injury outside the left ear?
I don't believe so, or I don't recall there being one.
And you testified that you saw no blood on my client after he was laying on his deceased son? Is that right?
Correct.
And you also testified that, well, I'll rephrase that. Did Deputy Coleman walk in with you when you got there?
I don't know who Deputy Coleman is.
Did a deputy walk in with you when you got there?
No.
And you do agree that my client said, he's my son, correct?
Yes, I heard that.
And how long after you directed him off of his son did he say that? Do you remember?
It was as I was leaving the house.
Pardon me?
It was as I was leaving the house.
Okay, and where was he when he said that?
He was in the foyer area.
Where you entered?
Yes,
And you didn't know him before this date, correct?
correct,
And you'd never seen him before, correct?
correct.
And you would not have any idea how he would react to seeing a loved one seriously injured as his son was, or dead, would you?
No, I would not.
I have no further questions.
Thank you. Mr. Kaiser?
Nothing, Your Honor, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Beckstrom. You can stand down. Mr. Kaiser?
Deputy Chase Durand.
Thank you. Deputy, if you'll raise your right hand, please. Excuse me.
Do you swear that the testimony you're about to give in this matter shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, would you state, sorry,
Mr. Kaiser?
apologize.
Thank you.
Deputy, would you state your name and spell your last name for us, and please speak up so everyone can hear you.
It's Chase Durand, C-H-A-S-E. Last name is D-U-R is capitalized, A-N-D.
Where do you work?
The Sheriff's Office, St. Croix County.
What's your job there?
I'm a patrol deputy.
How long have you been a police officer?
Been a police officer since 2013.
How long have you been with the St. Croix County Sheriff's Office?
Since May of 2015.
What are your duties as a patrol deputy?
We're assigned a patrol area to watch for traffic violations, suspicious activity, respond to emergencies, and other calls for service.
Can you summarize for us what training you've had in relation to your responsibility as a patrol deputy to be the first responder to a crime scene?
In the police academy, we are trained on scene response and securing the scene, and evaluating the scene for evidence, officer safety.
Were you doing that job in the early morning hours of April 14th, 2018?
I was.
What shift were you working that day?
I was working an overnight shift from 9 p.m. to 6:30 a.m.
Sorry, I was talking and I apologize. From when to when?
The assigned shift is from 9 p.m. to 6:30 a.m.
Were you working in uniform?
I was.
Did you have a marked squad vehicle?
I did.
What kind of car, what kind of vehicle was that?
My assigned patrol vehicle is a Ford pickup truck.
What other responsibilities do you have with the St. Croix County Sheriff's Office that might end up with your squad vehicle being a pickup truck?
I'm assigned the rec officer. I handle the water patrol, ATV, and snowmobile patrol for the sheriff's office.
Rec being short for recreation?
Recreation patrol.
So what kind of recreational activities that people engage in are you responsible for monitoring?
I patrol the waters on our patrol boat, and also snowmobile patrol for the trails.
And besides patrolling, and aside from the recreational activities, what other unit in your department are you assigned to?
I'm assigned to our emergency response unit, or SWAT team.
And the SWAT team is specifically trained in emergency responses, is that correct?
Yes.
On the morning of April 14th, 2018, about 4:12 in the morning, what, if any, call were you dispatched to?
I was dispatched to a 20-year-old male with a gunshot wound to his head
Where was it?
at 1489 142nd Street in Richmond Township.
Is that here in St. Croix County?
It is.
Where were you then?
I was near Hudson. had been responding to a vehicle crash. The roads were in poor condition. It had been snowing.
How far is that from New Richmond, or from the Richmond Township?
It's approximately good roads. I would estimate 15 minutes.
Not good roads that night.
They were not.
Once the call had gone out, did you continue to monitor radio traffic about that event in the town of Richmond Township?
I did. I began my response. I had heard on the radio that Sergeant Coleman was en route and with Deputy Proshock, and he had requested the assistance of Richmond PD to respond as well.
When the call went out, did you still have to finish up whatever you were doing with the crash?
I diverted from I was en route to another crash, so I diverted from that crash.
Okay, my mistake. As you continued to monitor the call, if you recall, who got there first?
Sergeant Sather from the Richmond Police Department.
Then who got there?
I don't know if, I believe it was Sergeant Coleman next, and then Deputy Proshock.
Can I publish Exhibit 2, Judge?
Yes.
Thank you. Is the house depicted in Exhibit 2 the one you went to?
Yes.
Where'd you park?
As I pulled into the driveway, I pulled to the far left side of the driveway, possibly in the yard. It was very snowy, I couldn't tell what was the yard and what was the driveway.
If you remember, and if you don't, that's okay. Do you remember if there was an ambulance there when you got there?
Ambulance was there.
Once you parked, where'd you go?
I approached the front door that's in the photograph there.
Who greeted you there?
No one was at the door immediately. I entered into the house.
And can you describe the entryway of the house as you come in?
The house was a split-level home. There was an entryway with a landing to the left. Immediately to the left, as you turned inside the house, there was a door. And then there was, I believe, went to the garage. And then there was stairs that went down, and then to the right, there were stairs that went upstairs.
The door that led to the garage, did that lead to the garage off the landing? Off the entryway when you come in?
I believe so. I never had went through that door.
Okay. As you came in the door, who, if anyone, did you see?
When I first came in the door, I saw an adult male that was shirtless. I later learned his name was Kayle.
Do you see him here in court today?
I do.
Would you point to him, please? Tell me what he's wearing.
See to my right wearing,
Stipulate that it's like-
Thank you. Identification is stipulated.
As you were entering that foyer entryway, where was the defendant?
to the left, leaning against the wall.
Did he say anything to you as you came in?
I don't remember him saying anything to me.
What could you hear as you came in?
As I came in, I could hear a lot of screaming. Deputy Proshock and Sergeant Sather were trying to keep, who I later learned his name was Summer, from going back up the stairs. They were holding her down, trying to keep her from going back up the stairs.
The people, Summer, the defendant, Chase Fleichauer, were these people you had ever known before?
They were not.
Now, the deputies were trying to keep the person we now know to be Summer from doing what?
She was trying to go back upstairs to be with Chase.
So I now need to know, where was she that she was trying to come back upstairs?
She was on the entryway landing near the bottom of the stairs to go up.
Ask the published age of the jury.
What are we publishing?
Exhibit 8.
Thank you.
I'm just running it past you
Thank
to make
you.
sure that I'm right about it having been admitted before, Judge.
Granted.
Thank you. Does this photograph, just in terms of the architecture, does this photograph truly and accurately depict if a person's standing on the landing entryway, the staircase down that you described earlier and the staircase up that you described earlier?
Yes,
All right. So, you said that the defendant's up against the wall as you came in, right, on the left?
yes.
Where's Summer?
Summer had been right in front of where we took that photograph, near the post for the stair railing.
Okay, so in the entryway, but right near the post with the little ball on top?
Yes,
All right. And what was she trying to do?
trying to get back upstairs.
And who, if anyone, was dealing with that?
Sergeant Sather and Deputy Proshock were trying to calm her and keep her from going back upstairs.
Now, when you came in and all of that was going on, it was a pretty chaotic scene there.
It was.
What were you either told to do or what did you decide to do once you're inside?
I had my camera in my pocket, so went upstairs, saw Sergeant Coleman up there, and I just began taking photographs, knowing that needed to be done, trying to photograph the scene as it was.
Where did you start?
I had walked upstairs and started taking photographs in the main kitchen dining room area. I don't remember my first photograph, but it was in the area of the victim.
Can I publish 39?
Yes.
Okay. Showing you Exhibit 39. Is that one of the photographs that you took?
Yes,
The equipment still there from the emergency medical technician?
yes, I believe they were still on scene at that point, but I don't recall where they were.
Well, you said the ambulance was there.
Yes,
And all four of the kitchen stools are in Exhibit 39?
yes,
And where there appears to be a kitchen stool just past the one that Chase's feet are entangled in. Could you describe where that is in relation to the kitchen island?
Object to that, Your Honor, the picture speaks for itself.
Are you asking distance from, how you want it?
I just wanted to
It's
describe-
two-dimensional, and I appreciate that, so if you're trying to clarify something that would be three-dimensional, then that's a permissible question.
He was there, and the one thing that's missing from the picture is not his fault, is the actual counter of the island, and I'd like him to describe where that stool on the far left is in relation to the counter.
Thank you.
the stool with the piece of clothing on top is pushed up to the counter of the island.
And it seems to have some stuff on it.
Yeah, I believe it was a sweatshirt, I'm not positive.
Move the answer be stricken, Your Honor, it's not responsive.
Overruled.
The, where else did you take photographs?
I took as many photographs as I could of the upstairs. I took photographs near the sliding glass door onto the deck and out of the deck, and there was a handgun that was on the island that was moved there by Officer Sather. I took photographs of.
And did there also come a time when you took photographs of the defendant?
Yes.
All right. So let's see if we can put those in order, all right? So you said you took photos of the victim first, correct?
Yes, photographs of the victim and the surrounding area were first.
And then what do you think you took pictures of next after that?
There were some photographs of the handgun, and then I went back to taking photographs of the area.
How did you come to know to take a photograph of the handgun?
I was advised by either Sergeant Coleman or Sergeant Sather that the handgun had been placed on the kitchen island counter.
That's published Exhibit 21.
Yes.
Thank you. Is Exhibit 21 a picture you took of the handgun on the counter?
Yes, it is.
Showing you what's been marked as Exhibit 47 for identification. Could you tell us what that's a photograph of?
It's the top of the slide on the handgun.
The same picture that was in 21? The same pistol that was in 21?
Yes.
Move 47 into evidence?
No objection.
Received,
Pass to publish?
granted.
And in Exhibit 47, the pistol is on the counter as you saw it in 21 earlier, is that correct?
Yes.
Thank you. One more question about Exhibit 47. I apologize. Is the condition that the Taurus PT 709 is in Exhibit 47, is that how it is when it's ready to fire?
Yes, the chamber indicator is pushed up, indicating if there's a round in the chamber.
That's the little button thing sort of in the middle?
Yes.
Thank you. While you were taking the pictures you described, how, if in any way, did you notice the defendant begin to behave?
While I was taking photographs, I heard the defendant start to laugh out loud and rub his stomach in a circular motion, making comments about how fat he was.
What did you do at that point?
At that point, I stopped taking photographs. Sergeant Coleman and I thought that was strange, and we went down to the landing where the defendant was standing, and I activated my Olympus pocket recorder I had in my shirt pocket.
When you went to where the defendant was, what were you intending to try to do?
Sergeant Coleman started asking some questions, and I still had my camera on me, and I noticed there was some blood on the defendant. I started taking photographs.
Had you been taking photographs of blood elsewhere in the house?
Yes.
And what happened when you started taking photographs of the blood on the defendant?
He started to become upset and loud.
Well, how could you tell he was upset?
He was getting loud and exaggerated. He asked if I wanted to start something, I believe is what he said. He called me sunshine, and then he asked if I wanted some of his, he said cock, and he pulled down the front of his pants, exposing his penis multiple times. I told him to stop, and he continued to pull down his pants.
Did you continue to take photographs of the defendant?
Yes.
Showing this to marked as Exhibit 41 for identification. Could you tell us what that's a photograph of, please?
A photograph of the left side of the defendant's head.
And what was it you were trying to capture a photograph of there?
There was a red mark that looked like blood to me.
Does photograph 41 truly and accurately depict how that red stain that you believe to be blood looked on the left side of the defendant's head?
Yes.
Move Exhibit 41 into evidence.
No objection.
Received.
Yes, to publish.
Granted.
And does Exhibit also 41 truly and accurately depict where you were in the house when you were taking these pictures?
Yes.
Can you tell us where that was?
In the entryway landing in front of the interior door that goes, what I believe to be going to the garage.
Thank you. Showing what's been marked as Exhibit 42 for identification. Could you tell us what that is a photograph of, please?
A photograph of the defendant's right hand, arm, and side.
What was it on him at that time that you were trying to capture a photograph of?
The red substance that appeared to be blood.
Does 42 truly and accurately depict how it looked when you took the photograph?
It does.
Move Exhibit 42 into evidence.
No objection.
Received.
Asked to publish.
Granted.
Where did you say you saw blood?
On the defendant's, both of his hands, his right side, and his head.
What's on his right arm besides blood?
Appears to be a tattoo.
If you remember, or if you can tell, do you know what it says?
So you can see partially the word Chase towards the bottom.
Thank you. Show me what's been marked as Exhibit 43 for identification. Could you tell us what that's a photograph of, please?
The defendant's right side, above his waistline and below his arm.
And does Exhibit 43 truly and accurately depict the scene you just described?
It does.
Move 43 into evidence.
No objection.
Received,
Ask to publish.
granted,
And this also truly and accurately shows the clothing he was or wasn't wearing at the time you saw him when you came in the house?
Yes.
Showing what's been marked as Exhibit 44 for identification. Could you tell me if you recognize what's depicted in that photograph?
The defendant's left arm.
What were you trying to capture in this photograph?
The red substance that appeared to be blood.
Does Exhibit 44 truly and accurately depict the scene you just described?
It does.
Move Exhibit 44 into evidence.
No objection.
received,
Ask to publish.
granted,
Again, we're still in that foyer entryway area, is that correct?
Yes.
What's the defendant have on his feet?
Socks.
When you captured his arm with the blood on it that you described, what, if anything else, did you capture on his feet, on his socks?
Red substance that appears to be blood.
Showing what's been marked as Exhibit 45 for identification. Could you tell us what this is a picture of, please?
The defendant's left hand.
Is it handcuffed?
Yes, he is.
What were you trying to capture in this photograph?
The blood on his hand.
Does Exhibit 45 truly and accurately depict what you just described?
It does.
Move 45 into evidence.
No objection.
received,
Ask to publish.
granted,
Where on his right hand was the blood you caught a picture of?
I'm sorry, can you say that again?
Where on his hand was the blood you caught the picture of?
Where was the blood located? On the palm and fingertips.
Thank you. Showing you what's been marked as Exhibit 46 for identification. Could you tell us what that's a photograph of, please?
The defendant's back.
Did it truly and accurately show the defendant's back as you took that photograph in the early morning hours of April 14, 2018?
It does.
What was on his back that you were trying to capture a photograph of?
There was a red mark near the upper shoulder, and then also his hands.
Move Exhibit 46 in evidence.
No objection.
received,
Ask to publish.
granted,
On Exhibit 46, what appears to be running from the top left shoulder towards the middle of his back?
A red mark of some type.
Do you have any foundation in your experience or training to tell you, that helps you tell us whether or not that appeared to be a fresh mark or not? If you don't, just tell me.
In the academy, we covered injuries from, hits or slaps, and appears to be a red mark that is recent, hasn't bruised yet.
And was there blood here also that you were trying to capture a picture of?
The red mark near the right shoulder, I wasn't sure if it was blood or light blood or another red mark.
Thank you. Was the activity of the defendant's behavior towards you concerning to you?
It was.
Describe to me what it was about his behavior that was concerning to you, that made you think he wasn't kidding.
He was yelling. He was showing odd behavior. He said he's an asshole. And then he made an aggressive right turn towards me,
What's an aggressive right turn, officer?
quick without any warning. And then he believe he started to raise his arms when, at that point, Deputy Coleman and Deputy Proschak made a decision that for officer safety, he'd be detained in handcuffs.
After you were done photographing the defendant, where was he taken to?
We attempted to place the white shoes on his feet, he said were his. We were unable to get those on, so we had located some sandal-type slip-on shoes.
Were all these shoes in the foyer?
Yes.
And where was he taken to?
He was put those on his feet, and he was escorted out to Deputy Proschak's squad car.
And you helped do that?
Yes.
Once he was out there, where did you go?
I returned to the residence. Sergeant Coleman had asked the ambulance to return to the house, and he asked that I escort Summer to the ambulance and wait with her in the ambulance.
And you did that?
Yes.
To the best of your knowledge, at the point at which you were asked to go with Summer out to the ambulance, had anything else been done with the PT-709 besides putting it on the counter by the island?
Not to my knowledge. I don't believe anyone else was upstairs when.
Objected as part of his answer, not.
Sustained.
All right, so let's walk through where everybody was. So you and Deputy Proschak took the defendant out to his squad car.
Yes.
All right. And then you were asked to take Summer from where out to the ambulance?
Summer had been at one point brought down to the basement. She was down there with Sergeant Sather.
Is there some sort of like living room sort of area in the basement?
I did not make it downstairs.
So how did you get in touch with her to go with her to the ambulance?
In the entryway of the home inside.
If you know, and if you don't, that's okay. Did somebody bring her to you or what? Or did she just come to you?
I believe she was escorted up by Sergeant Sather.
How was she?
She was very distraught, screaming and crying.
How did you get her to the ambulance?
Just asked her to come outside with us and walk to the ambulance.
Do you remember whether or not one of the EMTs helped you find shoes for her and take her out there? If you don't,
I don't remember.
So Sergeant Sather had been down with her in the basement area.
Yes.
Do you remember where Sergeant Coleman was at that point? If you don't, that's okay, just ask him.
I think he was in the entryway.
And as you testified earlier, to the best of your knowledge, in terms of law enforcement, Sergeant Sather had arrived first, Sergeant Coleman had arrived second, is that right?
For law enforcement, yes.
Given how Summer was behaving, how, if in any way, would it have been possible to secure and investigate this scene with her there?
With her trying to, she was very adamant that she wanted to be with Chase and not leave him alone. We needed to, Sergeant Coleman made a decision to, we were going to secure the whole residence to preserve the scene for investigation.
What might she do were she to be with Chase while this investigation is going on, with everyone knowing he's dead?
She could contaminate the scene, move things, or step in evidence.
Once you were with her in the ambulance, what did she continue to try to tell you she wanted to do?
To be with her brother.
At points, did you have to physically restrain her to keep her from leaving the ambulance?
Yes, I had to secure her arm and step in front of the ambulance door so she couldn't leave.
Is it fair to say a law enforcement officer would be needed to do that?
Yes,
Meanwhile, you said earlier that you had turned your recorder on, is that right?
yes,
And did your recorder continue to run while you're in the ambulance with Summer?
it did.
Have you had an opportunity to review a recording of portions of your recording from that day?
Yes,
And have you also had an opportunity to review a transcript of those portions of the recording from that day?
yes,
Is the recording a true and accurate recording of those things,
it is.
of those portions? And
Yes,
is the transcript a true and accurate transcript of those portions?
yes,
Do you recognize then Exhibit 48 to be the recording, the portions of the recording of your, from your portable recorder?
yes,
And you recognize Exhibit 49 to be an accurate transcription of those portions of the recording?
yes,
Move Exhibits 48 and 49 into evidence. Asked to publish.
Any objection, Mr. Gray?
No, Your Honor.
Thank you. Received. Publication granted. Again, ladies and gentlemen, what you're about to hear is evidence, and you can consider it just as you would any other evidence in this case. Again, keep in mind that what has been prepared as a transcript is not an official transcript, as it was not prepared by a court reporter, but rather by a staff member in the sheriff's department. And again, anything you hear is what you should rely on as opposed to what is in this transcript. Thank you.
And I'm gonna tell you how it is.
Thank you.
Yeah,
So what's your last name, man?
I'm gonna tell you how it is.
Okay. Tell me.
No, hey, come here, Chase.
Tell me how it is tonight.
I have no idea.
What happened here tonight, Kayle?
I have no idea.
No idea?
No, no.
What happened last night? Were you working on Friday?
No, I was not working on it, Fred.
Okay. Yesterday was Friday. What were you doing Friday afternoon?
I was not working on it, Fred.
Okay, what were you doing?
I don't know what you're talking about.
You don't know what I'm talking about?
Nope.
Okay, I was just asking what you're up to yesterday. Huh?
Yeah, it's fine.
I was just wondering what you're up to yesterday afternoon.
I wasn't, no idea what you're talking about.
Okay. You got a lot of blood and stuff on you? Is it all right if we take some pictures here real quick?
Can I read? No.
Okay. Oh. Hold on.
Whoa. I mean, you wanna do shit, I'm like, what's up?
Don't.
Huh? That's all good. Don't grab me, man.
I'm not touching you.
Yeah, you are. Hey, what's up?
Hey, sir.
Cool.
Who's taking the photographs?
Yeah, it's all good.
But
Hey, guess what?
Huh? Really? Yeah. The last time. Hey, what's up, sunshine? Kel? Yeah. Hang on, Kel. Yeah. Hey, oh, you want some? Hold on. Kel, pull your pants up, Kel. No, you want some coffee? No. Well, what's up? I'm done. You want us to? No, you want some cock? Kel, come here. Yeah, I understand. Fuck you, you fucking little bullshit. There, feeling. Hey, guess what? Okay. Oh, I'm an asshole. For what? I didn't do anything wrong. And guess what? I'll see you on the road.
They were just pointing out, I'll turn back over.
Yeah.
Did you have something else?
Motherfuckers, I know. Hey, by the way.
10:30.
Oh, hey. Yeah. Absolutely. You're not under arrest or anything. I understand it. You're just acting out a little bit. No, I'm not. You can't have that right now. No, you guess what? No. Hey, if you could release that. 4616. Little fingers right there. Yeah, that'd be good.
Go ahead.
Yeah?
I say to find out if that is a dual or not. No, it's not. Yes, I thank you.
We're gonna. Oh. There. Come on. Oh. Are we good? We are good. Now, I don't want to continue. You don't want to look at that. What do you have for shoes, man? I got my shoes. There's no white ones. No, the white ones. Come on, man. There's the fucking ones over in our way. These ones? Yeah, that's... I mean, can I like... Come here. Come on. And you get those white ones, right there. There's the fucking white ones. Yes? Yeah. Now, what the fuck? What are you guys are trying to fuck with me? Wait. Hold on. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, hold on. I know, but hold on. Yeah, guess what? Hold on. Hey! We gotta go! Settle down! Alright. Must we get you on one of your guys' spots? Oh. Guessing that's probably yours with the in the truck. What's that?
Put them in there, right?
Yours? Yours. Mine yours because of the truck. You have to go up to get in line. Hey! This isn't Kayle. Yeah, can you put your hands? You have some shoes you want to wear? Yeah. I'm riding again.
Oh, yeah, okay.
I know where we're going.
But we're going to have a look at this car, okay?
Where do you want to go? You want to go? I need my Is your sandal right here?
Yep.
Hey! Settle down! Where you want to go? I'm sorry. Caleb's gonna come over when we get you in the squad here, okay? I know you don't want, it's kind of hard a question I'm about to ask you, right? I gotta ask some stuff to kind of figure out.
Where are you now?
I believe we're now in the ambulance at this point.
For the record, on the screen, I see numbers 8:10:2. Thank you.
What happened here?
I told you, I know what's happened.
Okay.
I don't know.
So, when you came upstairs and found your brother, did you move him at all to do CPR or?
Yeah, well at first I couldn't. I walked upstairs and I thought maybe I was just having a nightmare because it was boiled over and my dad wasn't there, it was just Chase. Chase laying there. And I thought there's no fucking way there's just no way. I was like, maybe I'm so drunk from earlier. I said, there's no way that I'm seeing Chase like this. There's no way. So I went over to him and I was like, Chase, get up. Chase, are you okay? Chase, get up. And then also my dad came in and he was like, leave him alone, leave him alone. And I was like, should you be calling? I was like, and then I started to panic where I was like, okay. Then I started thinking okay.
Was your dad not in the room at all? Where was he?
He was down the hallway. The kitchen's right here, and then the hallway, and the bedroom's down that way. So he was down that way.
Did you see him when he went upstairs, or did he come?
He came from out, from his, I don't know what, from his back, from his bedroom, I don't know. So I heard something loud. I didn't know what it was. I thought maybe a chair had fallen, because I thought maybe they're still drinking, or they're seeing sloppy, or they poured over, whatever. That's why I got upstairs. Because earlier I could hear them yelling, and but it sounded playful arguing. They didn't oh fuck you this, well fuck you that, well it's not this. It sounds like they were joking, yelling, and arguing. And I yelled for Chase. I was like, Chase, did you come to bed? Chase, come to bed. They didn't listen to me. So I just got back to sleep. They're probably stop talking. And I was like, we were sitting there, and I kept thinking, and I first thought was you're supposed to elevate somebody's legs and then elevate their head because you have to get blood to the heart, right? Because I remember seeing on TV, and I was like, okay, you're supposed to put their head up and their legs up. But he was so heavy, so I was trying to just hold his head up. I was like, Dad, what the fuck are you calling 911? He's like, I can't. He couldn't get into his phone. I think he was drunk and couldn't get into his phone. I was like, what's the fuck's your password? And he couldn't remember, and he was just yelling. He said, leave him alone, leave him alone. So I ran downstairs, ran downstairs, got my phone, unlocked it, ran back upstairs, called 911. And then I told the guy, I need somebody here, but I don't want my dad's address.
When you went upstairs and found your brother the first time, was he laying face down on his back?
No, he was back.
Okay.
And the chair was knocked over. His back. His face was blue. His was really fun. And my brother was pushing him. It didn't make any sense. He was broken like he said. His face was so dark. It didn't make any sense. I was like, I don't know, it just didn't make sense. I was like, there's no way this happened. It didn't make any sense. I was like, this can't be changed. I knew it was $10, it can't be it. So I was like, what the fuck? And my dad was just not doing anything. So I was screaming, and I was like, it's fine, maybe I don't know. I was telling myself, okay, it's fine, but I called 911. And then he asked me, what's your address? I couldn't figure out what his address was. I started flipping through his mail. Because my dad wouldn't tell me what his address was. He's like, I don't fucking know, whatever. I was like, what the fuck is your address? You fucking live here. So we looked at his mail, and I finally saw the thing with his address on it, because all on his counter. I was like, I think it's 122nd something, or some street. It's in Richmond, Wisconsin. And then he started saying, can you be on the line? And I said, what do I do? And he started turning concussions under stress, because I put him over, I could hear his heartbeat and stuff. So I'm like, okay.
This is the 911 person telling me.
Yeah, so he started, 1, 2, 1, 2, so he started counting. So we're just counting, we're like, 1, 2. My dad said, knock the fuck off, he's done, something, he's done. I was like, what the fuck do you know? So I was screaming at him, get the fuck away from me, trying to grab me and pull me away from Chase. I was like, don't fucking touch me. I just think it was my father. I'm scared. He's my father. it. And he's pulling out. And I kept saying, like, he just like, he kept trying to drag me away from him, grab my phone. I said, no, stop. Put my phone down. I was like, I'm being professional. Like, and I just said, continue loud. So the guy was trying to hear me. So he went to, he kept saying that people were almost there. He watched me go by. And then, like, my dad had gotten up. And my dad just kind of told me, go grab some towels. You need to go change them off. I told him, like, fuck, I don't know.
Did you guys move him at all? Did you move shit at all?
No, it was on his, it was on his back. And I told my dad that I
You picked his head up then?
Yeah, I had him in my clothes. And I was like, okay, like, I'll have his head, because I figured I just stopped the bleeding, and just like, I couldn't tell what I could. I was like, I don't know, his optic, he was so blue. I was like, I don't know. And it was just blood out of him. I was like, I don't know. But I should put my hands. I don't know if I should be touching his head. So I told my dad, I got his house, I put him on his head. And my dad was just like, fuck. He was yelling, and then he kept telling me about touching him. And I was like, get the fuck away from me, because he tried to pull me in and shit. And finally somebody came in. Went to the police, and my dad was like, oh fuck, like, the police are here. I said, guys, like, fine, like, open the doors. So I went outside. I said, I can see a light. So I, like, as I got up, I left Chase. Police said, police.
You know, you did what you needed to do. You needed to let people in.
I got up to the door and I opened it. I just leave Terry out. Come in. And then the guy, I don't know, the guy came in. And then he started saying, like, was there a firearm? I was like, I don't fucking know. I don't care. I don't know. I don't care. But my brother's right here. He's like, oh, tell me where your firearm is. I was like, I don't know what the fuck a firearm is. I don't know. Because I told him, like, I don't know it, but my brother's right here. Like, my brother, he's right here. I was fucking not paying attention to him. He kept saying, like, where's your firearm? He said, yeah, my dad's like, where's your firearm? I was like, who cares? Like, stop. Like, he's right here. My brother's right here. Like, how are you not saying he's right here? And then he just started saying, like, man, you back away from him. I was like, no, like, why are you not grabbing him? He said, grab my brother. He's right here. And I was like, start doing impressions. Like, I did impressions. And he's like, man, you need to leave him alone. I was like, the fuck? My brother's right here. You know what I mean? Like, my brother, you need to be saving my brother. And then he just won it. And I was screaming at him, like, you need to be doing this. He wasn't listening to me. He just wasn't listening.
So, is Chase right or left-handed?
He's right-handed.
Okay.
Why?
We're just trying to figure out what happened.
So it sounds like people have been drinking then?
Yeah, that was the whole thing. Is my dad wants to come over, like, have drinks together and take out pictures for my grandpa's for his celebration next
Was
month.
there any drugs at all? Or
No, we're all just drinking.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna go let them know, so I'll be back in a minute. What we just talked about. Like,
And I was like, we're bringing you up.
Anything else you can find out, yeah, to let us know that was
I forgot one picture earlier. Officer, I apologize. Showing what's been marked as Exhibit 174 for identification. Can you tell us if you recognize what that's photographed of, please?
It'd be the Chase's lower half of his body and the bar stool that his feet were entangled in.
And then what's in the lower left-hand corner of Exhibit 174? What do you see the very bottom of there?
There's the bar stool that was pushed up against the counter with the sweatshirt or piece of clothing on top of it.
174 truly and accurately shows what you just described.
It does.
Move it into evidence and ask to publish.
Any objections?
No objection.
Received, publication granted. And that was 174,
It
Counsel?
was, Your Honor.
Thank you.
So it would have been at about the same time as the earlier one with the front of the EMT equipment, right?
Yes.
And in the lower left-hand corner, you can see the legs of the other stool.
Yes.
said that you were, till you had to leave to take care of Summer, you were being attentive to where there was blood in various places in the house. Is that correct?
Yes.
Where were you standing when you took the pictures of the pistol on the counter?
I was standing in the kitchen next to the counter that near the refrigerator.
So you would have been standing between the counter and the refrigerator?
Not between the counter and the refrigerator, but I think maybe the sink was behind to my back.
Okay. In the vicinity of where you were taking that picture, did you see any blood on the floor in front of the refrigerator?
I don't remember.
No further questions.
Thank you, Mr. Gray.
Yeah, Coach.
Yes.
What do you got? Okay, thanks. Just so we know if the writing is yours.
I want to show you exhibit 312. Deputy, can you identify that?
I did not take that photograph.
You didn't.
I did not.
You know who did take it?
I don't.
Did you go into the bathroom when you were there?
I did not.
When you took pictures of the gun, did you see any blood on the gun?
I did not see any blood on the gun.
And did you know before you started taking the pictures of my client, Kayle Fleischauer, that he had been laying on the top of his deceased son saying goodbye?
I did not know that.
Okay. Nobody told you that? Nobody told you that's how he got the blood on him? All these deputies there, is that right?
I was not told that.
Argumentative.
Again, what's the question, Mr. Gray?
Did any deputies tell you that, well, the blood is on him because he was lying on top of his son saying goodbye?
Nobody told me that.
When you were there, the EMT people were already there, correct?
They were on scene before I was, yes.
The answer is yes.
Yes.
And the tattoo on his arm that you took the picture of says Chase and Sommer, does it not?
I can see Chase on there.
Okay, you won't say the other one, Sommer?
I can only see part of the word.
Did you take any, strike that, did Sommer have any blood on her?
Yes, I believe she did.
Did you take any pictures of her with the blood?
I did not.
Did anybody?
I'm not sure if anyone did.
And before you started taking pictures of my client, Mr. Fleischauer, you asked him if you could take pictures of him, right?
I don't know if that was me or Sergeant Coleman. I don't remember who it was.
In any event, one of the deputies, we have Deputy Coleman down there, correct?
Yes.
In the entryway with my client, correct?
Yes.
And you,
Yes.
and where was Sergeant Sather?
At that point, when we first went downstairs, he was downstairs with Summer and Deputy Proshock in the lower level.
So we have three deputies in the entryway, we've seen the entryway with my client, Mr. Fleischauer, correct?
At first, there were two of us, and then when things started to get heated, Deputy Proshock came up the stairs.
Deputy Proshock was downstairs with Sather, with Summer in the basement?
Originally, yes.
Okay. In any event, at what point in time did Proshock come up to the landing? Do you
It was,
remember?
I don't know the exact moment, but it was when the yelling was starting.
Mr. Fleischauer if you could take pictures of him, correct?
One of us did.
Excuse me?
One of us did.
Somebody did. And you
Yes.
had the camera.
Yes.
And he said no,
I believe he said no. Yes.
all right? And then he told you, I didn't kill my Chase, is that right?
Yes.
And you asked, somebody asked him, what happened here tonight? And he said, I have no idea, correct?
Yes.
Did that cause you to hesitate at all about taking pictures of him with blood all over him?
No.
Did you ever ask him, how did he get the blood on him?
I did not.
Did anybody there, one deputy, the other deputy, any of you three deputies ask that?
Not while I was there.
Well, you were there throughout taking the pictures of him with blood on him, correct?
Yes.
Because you took the pictures, correct?
Yes.
And then at one point in time, he said, don't grab me, is that right?
Don't touch me.
Did Kayle say, don't grab me?
I have to look at the transcript.
Sure, I approach you on it?
Yeah.
Keep my leg from going to sleep.
Yes, Kayle said, don't grab me.
Okay. And Chase, is that you that said that? Here, it identifies you.
Judge, objection to the form of the question.
Well, again, show him whatever you're referring to, Mr. Gray.
Right after that, it says, Chase, I'm not touching you.
Yes, I said, I'm not touching you.
Okay, well, there are two other deputies there, correct?
Yes.
Did either one of them say they weren't touching him?
Objection to the form of the question, foundation, relevance.
Well, I'll sustain as to the form of the question.
Okay. When he said, don't grab me, did Sergeant Sather respond at all?
He was in the basement at that point.
All right, well, excuse me, what about our, Durand?
That's me.
You didn't respond, did you? Oh, you did, you said, I'm not touching you. correct?
Yes.
And then we have Deputy Coleman. Did he say anything that you remember?
Not that I recall him saying anything.
And there's nothing in your transcript about him saying anything, correct?
Correct.
And the other guy is Deputy Prashak. Withdraw that. Who was the third deputy?
Deputy Prosecutors was the one downstairs, and he walked up the stairs to where we and Sergeant Coleman are at when he heard the yelling get louder.
Well, when he heard "Don't grab me," what did he hear when he came up there?
I don't know.
Did he also tell you while we were taking these pictures, in fact, it was after he took his pants down, apparently, how many times? Multiple times, is that right?
Yes, I estimate 3 to 4.
3 or 4? And after he did that, he said to you, I didn't do anything wrong. Excuse me. I didn't do anything wrong, is that right?
Yes.
And would you take it if you were an individual who just lost his son, blood all over you, pajamas on, no shirt, cold outside, and instead of helping the man, you want to take pictures of him?
Argumentative.
Sustained.
In your experience, do other people in situations say they didn't do anything wrong like that?
Objection, no foundation.
Overruled. Matter of weight, you can answer.
Can you ask the question again?
Yes. Was that, in your experience, was it unusual for somebody to say, I didn't do anything wrong?
People tell the police that all the time?
Okay. So, that wasn't unusual.
No.
And you did, even after that incident where he dropped his pants, he did say, he's an asshole. Is that right? He said, I'm an asshole.
Yes,
And that was right before he said, I didn't do anything wrong, correct?
I have to look at the transcript to see the exact order, but those were both things that were said.
And after that, he was handcuffed and back, correct?
Yes,
And when he was handcuffed and back, he didn't resist it, correct?
no,
And after he was handcuffed and back, he was taken over and they put flip-flops, some kind of sandals on him, correct?
correct.
And then you three deputies took him outside, it was snowing wintertime, correct?
Objection, foundation for 3.
Sustained as to the form at this
All
time.
right. The deputies, you included one of them, was there any other deputies that took him out?
Deputy Proshock and I escorted the defendant to Deputy Proshock's squad car.
With no shirt on, flip-flops, and pajamas, correct?
Correct.
And you placed him in back of that, it was a truck, wasn't it? Squad truck.
It was an SUV, Ford
SUV.
Interceptor.
And that was Prashak's?
Yes,
Or near Prashak? And you put him in back of that SUV, and do you know how long he remained with those handcuffs on?
I don't.
Withdraw.
And when he was sitting in the SUV, you could hear Sommer still screaming and crying, correct? At least we could hear it on
Can you ask that again?
the, yes. At one point in time, in number 8, do you have a copy of the transcript?
Gave it to her.
I approach, I'll show it to
Yeah.
you. At some point in time, well, first of all, read this. To put it where it's at.
Which part was you going to read?
Just where I got it circled, this part, so you know where you're at. To yourself. All right. And who's Charles, is that? Who's that?
That's Sergeant Coleman.
All right. And at some point in time, did Bill yell, hey, settle down?
Yes,
And was that when he was handcuffed in the truck?
that was when we were still in the entryway of the residence.
All right, right before, right? Because then you have, unknown, we're going to have a seat in my squad, okay? You see that?
Objection, foundation to what before what?
Page 9. Chase, that's you, right?
Yes,
And you were asking him if he had any shoes he wanted to wear, correct? Here, go ahead.
yes,
And after he said, yeah, effing right, I'll hold you here, okay, can you, where are we going? Is that what Kayle asked?
yes.
And who's unknown there? Is that still you?
I don't know who that was, if that was me or Deputy Proshock.
And then, did you say, are those sandals right here? Is that right? Down
Yes,
here. And are you the one that placed sandals on his feet?
I don't remember which one of us did it. I was the present.
One of you put sandals on his feet,
Yes,
and then he went out to the SUV, correct?
correct.
Handcuffed. And you were with Sommer and talked with her a bit in the squad car she was in, correct?
We were in the ambulance.
Or ambulance, I'm sorry. And she told you, and I guess I gotta approach you and have you read this. She told you that when she was hearing yelling, here, just read that to yourself to refresh your memory, and I'll ask you some questions. Okay? And she told you that before she heard the loud noise which caused her to go upstairs, she heard, sounded like playful arguing, F you this, F you that, sounded like they were joking, yelling, arguing. Did she tell you that?
Yes.
Did she tell you that she said you should come to bed, Chase? Did she tell you that?
Yes.
And then did she tell you that when her father came from the hallway, I think because, did she say, I think because he was drunk, he couldn't get into his phone. And then she says, the fuck's your password? And he couldn't remember. He was just yelling and leave me alone. So I ran downstairs and got my phone. Is that what she told you?
Yes.
Did she ever say at any time that he raised his hands above his head and kept his phone up there?
No.
Then she told you that she told her father to grab some towels when he did arrive out at Chase's body, correct? Remember that?
Can you say that again?
Yes. Again, yes. Here, just read that. Did she tell her dad to grab some towels?
Yes.
And then did she tell you, read the bottom of that to yourself, did she tell you that when the door was knocked by Sergeant Sater, or the first law enforcement officer there, that she was the one that went down and opened the door?
Yes.
Now, you made out a report in this case, correct?
Yes.
And have you reviewed that report before you testified today?
Yes.
And you described on the report, besides what we saw in that back where you said it looked like a recent bruise, remember your testimony on that?
Yes.
In your report, you also described that Kayle Fleischauer had a small scratch on his right elbow, is that right?
Yes.
And did you observe that?
Yes.
And in your report, you write, Kayle was informed he was not under arrest, but because of his erratic and threatening body language behavior, he was being detained. Is that right?
Yes.
And you write in your report that Kayle yelled at Sommer to settle down. Is that right?
Yes.
Did she tell you that her dad loved Chase?
Yes.
She told you that her dad just lost his dad. Is that right?
Yes.
Were you in the squad when Kay Morris was in there talking with Sommer?
In the ambulance, yes.
Yeah. And do you remember Sommer saying, he's my dad loves me, and he loves my brother, that's what dads do? Do you remember that?
Yes.
My dad and I have never been close, but I always knew, like, okay, like dads are supposed to love you. Did she say that?
Yes.
Dads do love you, and my dad loves me, even though we're not very close. And I know he really loves Chase, son, to like carry on his name. I couldn't do that, whatever, fine. But like he loved Chase very, very, very much. He got him and she says, fucking Jeep. Like he loves him a lot. Did she tell you that?
Yes.
Thank you, sir, that's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Kaiser, redirect.
So, Deputy, in your experience, are there times when people say they didn't do something when they actually did do something?
Yes.
And in any of your experience when you've been trying to deal with a traumatic situation for someone, has anyone ever shown you their penis 3 times and asked you if you wanted to suck cock?
Object, Your Honor, he didn't say that.
Sustained as to the form of the question.
Move that question be stricken, Your Honor. That's the jury.
Jury will disregard.
You've been asked about your experience on prior occasions, right?
Yes.
All right. On this occasion, were you asked, you want some cock? Do you remember being asked that question?
Yes.
Who asked you that question?
The defendant.
Were you asked the question, no, you want some cock? Do you remember being asked that question?
Yes.
Who asked you that question?
The defendant.
Do you remember being asked the question, you want some cock?
Yes.
Who asked you that question?
The defendant.
In any other traumatic situation that you've ever responded to before, has anyone ever said that to you?
No.
No further questions.
Mr. Gray.
Did that really offend you a lot that he had said that? Were you offended?
I was not offended.
You weren't? I have no question.
No further questions.
You can stand down, Deputy. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take a brief recess. I call this a leg stretching recess. It's not going to be very long, so anticipate about 10 minutes. Don't form any opinions, begin any discussion, start any deliberations. We'll see you back in about 10. Thank you.